Has it been a while since you played Destiny 2, or has it just been yesterday? No matter which type of player you are, whether you're a completely new player, whether you're a player who's been away for a long period of time, or just a short period of time, in this video, we're going to go over the basic system changes that have happened in Destiny 2 leading up to Edge of Fate. The way I'm going to do this video is, if you're someone who hasn't played, let's say, since D2 launch, you're going to watch the entire video from beginning to end. If you're someone who has played in Final Shape, but maybe you don't know what changes are coming for Edge of Fate, you'll listen to the end. So again, just look for the timestamps in the video, depending on where you left off. If you watch it in order past the place where you left off, you'll be able to get all the major changes no matter when you left in Destiny 2. So first off, let's talk about year 1 of Destiny 2. Again, that was the last time you played. So depending on when you left then, that was really the year that almost killed Destiny. There was a drought in content and some of the systems were pretty basic. If you're one of those that gave up on the game or now interested in playing again, boy, are there some changes to walk through to prepare you for the state of the game today. First off, remember the double primary meta. Who can forget that? Well, that's gone. Destiny moved from that abomination to what is now kinetic energy and power slots that offer a great deal of flexibility to your gameplay. In addition, random rolls came back from Destiny 1. So basically, instead of having the same gun no matter what it was when it dropped, you could get random rolls, so you could get different abilities and perks, and that again allowed people to get more deeper into gameplay because if you grinded the game, you could get the rolls that you liked. To add depth to the game, triumph, seals, and titles were added. This allows completionists to grind every possible area of the game for triumph score and seals and titles to aspire to an ultimate form of swag. You know, there's still to this day, there's a title called Shadow that I still don't have, that I'm frustrated I have, but there's other things I have that other people don't, that I'm glad that I was there to do those specific things. So again, it adds the ability to stay current with the game. Collections were added as well, so that anything that you collected in the game, whether it's an emblem, a ship, a shader, a gun, as long as it's not random rolls, that you could go back and collect them. A lot of times people use it as sort of a piggy bank. For instance, if you don't want to fill your vault with exotics, you can pick up an exotic within the collection instead of having to store it. So again, that comes in handy. Gambit was added to the game, which is a PvE PvP combo mode that I personally enjoy a great deal. Not everyone does. You kill enemies, you pick up their motes, you bank the motes, and depending on where you do that, you actually can invade and go to the other side and kill not the enemies, but the actual PvP style combatants, the other guardians who are in the game. Come back, continue to do that, kill the primevals, and then take down the boss. Again, personally, it's a lot of fun, but again, it's subjective. Not everyone particularly cares for this particular mode. To simplify XP gains, bounties were added back to the game, give you something to chase and to make XP gains simple to understand for every player. This system has a large overhaul in Edge of Fate, more to come on that, but it is something that is still used to this day. The annual pass was added, and this allowed you basically to simplify how you bought the game. So basically you would pay one price and you'd get a continuous drip of content through multiple seasons. This was to avoid some of the lack of content that happened during year 1 of Destiny 2. Champions were added, and they're not always the most popular thing, and now they're really a core item in the game. You can choose from barrier champions, which have a shield, and you have to stun it once the shield comes up to take them down. Overload champions, which regenerate health and warp around if not stunned. And unstoppables that will bear down on you if they're not stunned. The core to this now is that with champions, you basically have to use particular either mods and guns, perks, abilities, and we'll talk about that a little bit in this further on in this video, but there are different ways to stun champions, and they're pretty much scattered throughout the game now. Now to continue on, if you last played in Forsaken, things have changed quite a bit. Armor 2.0 had rolled out. Armor 2.0 gave you things like to chase like stats, specific energy burns, and abilities that really helped you get deeper into build crafting. Armor 2.0 was introduced, which allowed you to basically take your armor instead of just being something that you collected and get specific rolls on stats, energy burns, and abilities. Now, I won't go into this in great detail because this system is drastically overhauled with Edge of Fate, and towards the end of this video, when I talk about the Edge of Fate section, I will go into that. But this was the beginning of that evolution. The seasonal artifact was rolled out. This artifact was leveled up through XP grinding and required unlocking lower levels to get to upper level mods. Now, some of that's changed over time, but that's how it was rolled out immediately. These mods could then be applied and used in combat. The mods then went away each season. This provided motivation to continue to grind every season and change the meta so that the game didn't grow stale. The artifact also had mods that allowed for additional champion stunning options, etc. And towards the end of the of the artifact, typically that's where your best mods, your most game-breaking mods were located at. And that's why they're at the end, because it took you a little bit to get there. Finishers were added. This was something that would allow you to do most of the damage to an enemy, and then you would see like a yellow dot that would show on top of it. Once you hit that yellow dot, you would basically press a button on your controller or keyboard, and you would finish him. You would do a sort of motion. You could buy different types of these motions to finish him. Now, it seems pretty insignificant, but it can really help in some cases when you're doing certain activities in the game. Also, doing a finishing activity on an enemy can actually lead to some build crafting, because it can actually cause certain abilities to spawn out of that. So again, it is something that is a key component of the game. A battle pass was added in Destiny 2 called the Season Pass, and it was rolled out. It would allow you to gain special buffs and rewards based on XP gains in the season. There was a paid and free pass to support the new free-to-play New Light experience. This allowed players to test out Destiny before they buy it, with some content the game continues to be free, including some raids and dungeons to this day. And again, this is similar to what other games have done with free-to-play functionality, and with Edge of Fate, there will be additional free-to-play stuff that's going to be brought into the game. If you last played in Shadowkeep, there are some radical changes after this point in the game. Remember, after Shadowkeep was the first DLC where Destiny was kind of on their own from Activision. A new Darkness subclass called Stasis was rolled out in Beyond Light. This subclass dove deep into crowd control through freezing elements that allow you to control the battlefield, and was really broken in the game for some time in PvP and even PvE. And to this day, there's some pretty powerful builds that you can do with Stasis. With Stasis, the subclass process was simplified and also made deeper, the addition of aspect and fragments. Now, it seems like a conflicting thing. It was simplified in that over time you had a consistent process throughout the game, but it added a lot of other features that would allow you to do deeper build crafting. Aspects are specific to your subclass and allow you to gain deep and wide customization of your builds. These are very specific things, and there are choices you have to make. You can only use so many of these, so depending on the type of build, you have to be very specific. Fragments are opened up across your stasis abilities on all your characters. So again, these are more general things that you can do, but again, even with these are choices because you only have so many of them. These open up gameplay in the campaign. So basically, you play through the campaign. It's like the scene of the day. And based on how much you play, you unlock those abilities, which is a blessing and a curse. And some of the DLCs, they got the mix right. And the first DLC of Beyond Light, when they did this, it was a slog trying to get everything unlocked. So again, it's a blessing and a curse. Because a lot of times it felt like you were doing fetch quests to gain everything. Lost sectors allowed you to start, if they had a upper tier of them. So basically ones at power level where you were capped, and where your loadouts were capped. But with these, if you finished them on solo, you could get a chance at getting exotics, and they were on a knockout system. So this was a good way for a while to be able to actually go in and get exotics free in the game. To simplify XP games and to tone down bounty stacking, seasonal challenges were added in the game, and these are still in the game. These are individual challenges like bounties that allowed you to gain a lot of XP. Also, they presented weekly challenges and specific activities for additional XP. The goal again was to playing the game with other players versus just grinding out bounties. And typically, you would start to see patterns of these between seasons, so you would know going to next season, there's certain ones that you're probably going to see that you'll be prepared to do. But again, a lot of these you would just get from playing the game. The seasonal model was expanded to add more depth to the seasonal story. It was more exposition-based and more dripped out over the season versus all at once. So historically in Destiny 2, you would have a DLC, you'd have a bunch of campaign missions that'd be over. In this case, they were trying to keep people, especially people who are into lore, keep them hooked into the game. Finally, due to growing challenges of the game around stability, some content was vaulted, and they called this the Destiny Content Vault. So at the time, Titan IO, Mercury, Mars, and Leviathan won. This model now retires content every year. So that doesn't mean when you buy a DLC, you're going to lose a destination. In fact, they haven't removed destinations in quite a while. What it does typically mean is that the content that you had during the season, the seasonal content, a lot of that's going to go away. But specifically DCV, every season, normally your seasonal content disappears, and every once in a while you'll have a destination disappear, but that doesn't typically happen these days. If you last played in Beyond Light, there were some really impressive changes that happened after this point in the game. Bungie started getting kind of their mojo as far as grinding some new things and kind of radically changing the game. Weapon crafting was rolled out. This allowed you to collect what they called red borders from activities to earn a pattern that you craft in a weapon. So typically, you would get the red borders. You have to get like 4 or 5 of them. Once you got that, you had a pattern. Think about the patterns as similar if you're in Destiny 1. When you used to have patterns for like ships and things like that, there were special missions for that. Think of it similar to that. You would then level that weapon up. So you would craft it. You would level that weapon up, and you could unlock any roll in the gun and eventually enhanced version. So what was nice about this, instead of having to have 45 versions of a weapon, you could grind to get the patterns. Once you get the patterns, you could get it crafted. And once you did that, it's locked in. At any point, you could re-roll the gun. This allowed you not to keep 67, 70 versions of a particular gun because you're worried about a particular perk getting hot at some point. You have it locked in. At any point, you could even delete that crafted weapon and recraft it later. You're just going to need the materials to do that. So again, one of the reasons for that, there was a lot of complaints about the amount of grinding in the game, and this kind of simplified some of that, and it also allowed you to conserve vault space. The Legendary campaign was rolled out, and again, this is similar to the Halo franchise, where you play at a harder version of the campaign, but then you start at a fairly high power level with having to grind out bounties and activities. This was immensely popular, worked really well, and still to this day is kind of the cornerstone of the best content within Destiny 2. This supported many teams becoming raid ready, and instead of them, and you still potentially might have to do some bounties, maybe you want to get a little higher level than other people, but you didn't have to do as much of that because it kind of evened the playing field as far as getting to base power level. All of the light subclasses were rolled out via Light 3.0 over the period of a year. So this treatment gave Void, Solar, and Arc their own aspects and fragments, which really opened up build crafting to an entirely new level and really allowed the developers to specialize each season around themes that went deep into build crafting. So now, because you'd potentially say, okay, this next season, we're going to do your seasonal pass, and we're going to, or the artifact, and we're going to say, we're going to make this around Arc and Strand. Well, then they could basically give you mods for that or perks for that would allow you to do that, and then they would basically make changes to the aspects and fragments. So it opened up a lot of really cool things, and that was one of the best eras in Destiny because some of those particular items were just completely broken, some of them even to this day. Also, verbs, which are standard terms related to aspect and fragments like radiant or jolted, those were added as stun options for champions. So you didn't specifically have to have mods to counter them anymore. You could build craft around them because sometimes it's difficult to have all 3 of the type of guns you would need for all 3 type of champions. But now you potentially didn't need any guns because you could basically use abilities off of your aspects and fragments in different builds to stun champions. And with that, you could also build craft into it, which would deepen your build crafting in the game. Now, if you last played in Witch Queen, which is an incredible DLC, you have missed out quite a bit, but you are getting closer to being current with the game. First off, skimmers were introduced. These were like sparrows, but offer you the ability to surf through the sky, similar to what was used in the Lightfall campaign, which obviously you're not familiar with anyway. But basically, it allows you, instead of just taking your sparrow and being able to do things on the ground, you could basically very easily skate over large areas using this skimmer. So it was basically a better version of a sparrow. This sounds pretty minor, but it was one of the best additions to the game, and people loved it for a long period of time. Armor no longer has specific elemental energy, which allow a great deal of flexibility in build crafting. Prior to this, mods for build crafting were tied to specific energy, Arc, Solar, Void types that would limit how you would build craft. Now you don't have to worry about that. You had complete freedom. All you need to really worry about for your armor is making sure it had really good stats. That was really your focus. Strand was introduced, which was another darkness subclass that allowed you to almost unlimited motion across the battlefield. It was really, the whole thing was around motion, being able to move around, again, similar to like the skimmers. And again, Lightfall is very much into this. This fed again into the skimmers recently added to the game. Strand, like Stasis before, it was completely broken when it first introduced the game, but still is a major component in a lot of key builds that are in the game. Loadouts were added. As Destiny continued to become a deeper RPG, with the very intricate builds, it became difficult to keep track of those without third-party utilities like DIM or things like that. Now, in-game, you could save builds and swap them on the fly. Now, Destiny being Destiny, they also made sure to add a little bit of a grind to it, where to build out some of these loadouts, you'd have to move up the Guardian ranks, which I'll talk about here a little bit later. But you have to go up on that to basically build out some of those. But basically, most of that you get by playing the game. But it was really nice because if you need to swap out in the middle of an activity, instead of going and getting dim or something like that and being able to do it, you basically just go in the game and go to loadouts and swap your build like live in the game. So it was really a cool thing. A new armor charge system was implemented to replace Charge of Light elemental well builds. In this case, you could earn armor charges that acted very similar to Charge of Light to activate portions of a specific build. One reason for this was that the oppressive nature of these builds in the game. Instead of continuing to power creep activities, this allowed them to kind of flatten the build environment and also simplify. Because the other thing is, if you were a new player, it was very intimidating to figure out which mods. With this new system, it really simplified how you did builds and was a lot easier to explain to people. So that really helped out too. The seasonal artifact now moved to a model that once you unlocked a specific item in the artifact, it didn't require a mod to utilize. It became a perk. This passive perk you could use in the game assuming you met certain requirements. So instead of going in and slotting a mod, you basically, once you unlocked it, it was unlocked on your character and you were good. If you last placed in Lightfall, you were almost caught up, but you did miss a few things. With Final Shape, Prismatic rolled out. Now, Prismatic is hard to explain for people who are new to the game because it seems like it's something that they wouldn't do. But again, I think they really, Bungie in some respects was kind of boxed into a corner because they'd already done Arc 3.0, Solar. They had done all the aspect and fragment treatments to everything. And it was really difficult for them to do something game-breaking. So they decided to really do something game-breaking. Prismatic is simply the most broken thing in Destiny 2 history. Imagine taking the best of both your dark and light subclasses and then adding the ability to add another super-like ability called Transcendence to decimate the battlefield in a way never before seen in the game. Want to play with a Void Super, an Arc Grenade, and aspects and fragments from darkness subclasses? You can do it now. To say the best builds are built off Prismatic, and Bungie still struggles to balance it to this day. Exotic class items rolled out through the dual Destiny game mode. Exotic class items let you take the best portions of exotics across all characters and utilize them on any character class. This is limited to 2 exotic armor abilities per exotic class items, and they were also toned down a little bit, but include an exotic from a hunter and one from a titan or warlock. And build crafting was brought to an entirely new level because basically you could use the best exotic abilities. Again, not everything was rolled out, just some, across multiple different subclasses and character classes into one exotic class item. So again, totally broken. Fireteam Fighter was implemented and allowed you to LFG in the game itself. It isn't perfect, but it's a big step forward. Select your activity, select your requirements, set whether you want to be on mic or off mic, and whether you need an application. Application means you have to review them, or you just want people to auto-join, and get your fire team in the game. So again, this is a really nice way, instead of having to go to Discords or Reddit posts or other places or third-party apps, where you could find people in game. And again, it's not perfect, but it does help out a great deal. Fireteam Power was implemented, which allows you to bring friends who haven't been in the game in a while. And if you're a returning player, this is a really cool thing. So let's say you want to go in a raid. And let's say you have 5 players and they're bringing a friend that hasn't played in a while. But that player hasn't played in like 3 years and their light level is like 300 below yours. Well, it doesn't matter. When you go in the activity, what it's going to do is it's going to take the highest person in the activity and it's going to bring everyone else within 5 power levels of that character. Now, you're still going to be, if you're the player who hasn't been in a while, you're still going to be at a disadvantage because you're probably not going to have great builds and things like that because you haven't been in a while. And you're also going to be 5 levels under, but it's still a great way to bring people back into the game without feeling that they have to grind like 4 DLCs to get to where you are. So this was a really great addition. Allows basically anyone, even if they haven't played very often, to hop in with their friends. Legendary shards were removed from the game, simplifying the game economy, focusing on Glimmer. And the Glimmer cap was raised to 500k. Now, I haven't talked in this video a lot about all the different changes in currencies, but Legendary Shards has been there from the very beginning. And for instance, if you're one of those people who were here when they had the Forges and you did the AFK the AFK to the Forges, you might have hundreds of thousands of shards still sitting in your character. Well, it doesn't matter, they're gone now. A new Pathfinder system was implemented, which was meant to supplement bounties. Some people don't like it. I like it a great deal. Instead of constantly going to vendors to grab bounties, which you still can do, instead, you have a path you blaze with specific goals around the Pale Heart, Crucible, Vanguard, and Gambit. This really simplified the in-game XP grind and loot chase. So basically now, as you're playing the game, if you go to certain areas, if you do certain activities, you will basically get these ticked off, and as long as you do them in a line, you get to the end, you get XP as you're doing each of them. At the end, you get some additional rewards. Those rewards tend to deprecate a little bit the more you do it during a particular week. But even if you continue to do them, even though it's not as powerful rewards and things like that, you still get rewards and additional XP for every time you grind this out. So it was a really nice addition to the game. Power is simplified, but instead of trying to gain power in each character, your power is considered account-wide. If you get a drop in your Warlock after playing your Hunter for a bit, those drops will drop at the highest level across all of your players and in your vault. Again, this was about simplifying the power grind for new players and returning players. So again, no more worrying about, hey, I need to grind this character and then I need to swap my weapons over to this character. Don't worry about that anymore. It's now account-wide. So now, let's say you're pretty much caught up, but you're preparing for Edge of Fate. Let's talk about some of the changes of Edge of Fate. This will catch up all the new and returning players, but also if you just played last week and just trying to understand what's coming in a few weeks or a few days at this point. Armor 3.0 is rolling out. This will change how you utilize armor forever. Stats are moving to simplified stats that make sense to new players. Weapons instead of mobility, health instead of resilience, etc. These stats now range from 0 to 200. Each point of the stat affects ability regen. In the past, it was tiers of 10. It's each point at this point. If you gain around 70 with a stat in question, it will function much as it does today. Between 70 and 100, it will act a little bit better. You'll get a little bit more utility out of it. Above 100, it actually starts getting special abilities. So for instance, for the grenade ability, if you go above 100, your grenades actually do more damage. So again, each of these stats have a similar effect. Armor will roll with a spiky primary stat and a secondary stat, simplifying armor grind. Armor sets will roll with affinities, and again, this is at the upper tiers, and we'll talk about tiers in a little bit, where if you have 2 pieces of a specific armor, you'll get a benefit. And if you get 4 pieces, you'll get a greater benefit. Again, this is to allow you to kind of get into the fantasies of certain types of play styles. Now, this isn't popular for everyone because at launch, it's going to be limited in which affinity things roll out. But again, I'm assuming Bungie over time is using this, so each season they can start building into specific types of, again, to change the meta. Because keeping players in the game really is about changing the meta over time. Otherwise, it gets stale. Who knows what this will look like as Edge of Fate rolls out. But again, I do think long-term this will benefit everyone. It'll just mean that in many cases, you're going to have to grind out some new armor. I would not get rid of your current armor, because I think your current armor will still be, especially if upper tier armor, will still be viable for the short term. Now with that, we talked about gear tiers, and gear tiers are coming. Gear now drops from level 1 to level 5. Your best armor today would be around, again, your best armor would be around a tier 3 in the new system based on stats. Tier 4 and 5 have higher stats than can be achieved today, and additional abilities to add mods. Now this also applies to weapons, not just to armor. So for weapons, as you progress, basically, if you think about the crafting system today, or if you're not familiar with that, basically you can get additional mods, you can get enhanced version of mods, and then you can get multi-rows of mods. As you go up to tiers 4 and 5, that's the effects you'll get. You'll get mods, you'll get enhanced mods on your guns, and then you may get up to 3 rows of mods you can select for. So again, your best weapons today are probably not your exotics, but your legendaries are probably like a tier 3, right? But as with the new content rolling out, you'll be able to eventually retire some of those weapons and go to tier 4 and tier 5 weapons that are very similar. Power is no longer tied to XP. XP continues to affect the reward pass and vendor rep, but power is no longer something you have to grind XP specifically to gain. With that, the power grind has been ridiculously simplified. You're going back to level 10, so if you're new and coming back, you're like, I gotta redo everything. Nope, everyone's level 10. Doesn't matter if they've been playing the game for 10 years or you've been playing it for a minute. You'll get level 10 gear. If you play the game, any portion of the game, you will eventually tap out with a soft cap with 200. For those who are familiar with the game, that's the typical thing in Destiny. That's just playing the average game, not doing high-end content. Eventually, you cap out at 200. And again, for most players, that's fine. Because if you're not getting the higher-end content, you don't need anything higher than that. Any regular content you play in the game will get you to this, again, through increasing power and gear. So each gear piece you have, it's going to drop with increasing power levels. To get past that level, you'll need to use a more streamlined approach, and that's where the portal rolls out. That's going to simplify everything, especially for you folks that are returning to the game and have been in a while. It's going to be a lot simpler and a lot more determinative on how you get the higher level power. The portal is a system in Destiny 2 that allows you to grind for gear in a deterministic fashion. Through a variety of modes, you will be basically able to modify the difficulty to determine what you get. So you can use Banes, you can use reduction in power, you can ask challenges, you can do pluses and minuses to basically eventually figure out exactly what type of gear. And you'll see that you can say, hey, I want to get this next pair of gear. I want to get to this power level in that piece of gear. You can keep tweaking that until you get the right level gear that you're looking for. The other thing that's nice is, let's say you're looking for, because this always happens to everyone, you need this last piece of a helmet or boots or something like that to get to the next power level. There are going to be daily rewards that will actually allow you to say, hey, I want to get this specific one. Let me do this activity with these modifiers. I'll be able to get this specific type of gear, which is really cool and really help you to very easily be able to get to the next level. So again, I feel like the portal is kind of a contract with the player, determine exactly what type of content they want to play and what rewards they're going to get, which is really going to be great, especially for players who are not familiar with Destiny 2 systems. Solo Ops is an activity class within the portal, which allows you basically to play activities with just yourself, right? So maybe you need to get something quick in for 15 minutes. You don't have time to play with your friends. You can, or maybe you're just someone who likes to play solo in general. You'll be able to go in using the same modifiers and things that are within the portal system and be able to get specific type of gear and rewards, again, as a solo player. So this is a really cool way of doing things, and there's always been the request to be able to play strikes and things like that as a solo player without having to modify your system. This is an easy way to do this. So again, this will allow for you part-time guardians especially, who just want to get some quick things in, to be able to do that without having to match with other players. Fireteam's Ops is a system within the portal that allows you, as you can tell, to be able to do activities with a fire team. Typically 3 players is what you're typically going to find. It's going to go to basically a lot of legacy content and current content within the game that you're basically going to put modifiers and things just like what you would typically do with the portal, and then you get deterministic rewards out of that. It's a really cool system, again, allowing you to determine exactly what you want, and it gives you a wide variety of different types of content that you can utilize to get the rewards that you want, and then ultimately to fire team match with players. Pinnacle Ops is going to have probably a little bit more difficult content. At launch of Edge of Fate, and more things will be coming over time, this is really going to replace the exotic mission rotator. So you'll be doing exotic missions with fire teams, with matchmaking, to get similar type of rewards. Again, over time, the system will expand. And again, it'll allow you to get some upper tier gear. But the beginning of Edge of Fate, it's primarily going to be launching with exotic missions. But again, it's similar to other modes within the portal. There's a Crucible Ops mode within the portal. And what this allows is that for years, you were able, as a PvP or Crucible player, to be able to level up your characters. And it's gotten more difficult now, especially if changes have happened in the last few years in Destiny 2. Now you'll be able to go in as a PvP player playing no PvE and be able to grind up and get to pinnacle type of rewards within the game. Now, this is going to obviously have a bunch of different modes that you have within PvP, with obviously the highest end mode being the Trials mode. So again, this will allow you, where you haven't been able to in a while, to be able to actually grind up as a Crucible player and get to that gear that you want. One final change of note is that in the past, when you upgraded your armor and weapons, and I didn't talk about this earlier because it's going away, you used to use things called upgrade modules. Those are going away. So if you have them, you'll need to get rid of them. Unstable cores are what coming are now, and those are basically obtained as rewards through activities. Or let's say you're at level 350 and you get a piece of gear that's at level 380. If you break down that piece of gear, the higher the gap is between your power level and the one that you break down, you're going to get more unstable cores to be able to do upgrades. So again, we don't know completely how that's going to work over time as far as, how many you're going to get, but that's what you're going to have to do now to upgrade armor. As you can see, Destiny 2 is a constantly evolving game that changes based on the ever-changing player base. If you've made it this far, you should be caught up and be completely ready to get into Edge of Fate, which is probably, for a returning player, the best time to get in the game, with a lot of content and changes being aimed specifically at engagement with returning players. One of the things I'm most excited about Edge of Fate, because I know some people aren't because of the lack of new content, even though there's some, but it's not as big a content as, say, like the Final Shape. The amount of focus on being able to get returning players and new players into the game and be able to understand exactly what they need to do to get to where they want to get to, I think is a big upgrade to the game. I think it will help player engagement over time. If you like this video, feel free to like it, subscribe to my channel, join my Discord, and I'll see you Guardians in the Tower.